You are now watching On Point, a news and public affairs show from California State University Northridge.
Good evening. I'm Jake Dodd, and this is CSUN On Point. Our main story tonight is homelessness, and the story of homelessness in this country is grounded in a failure of perception compounded by failures of policy. So today, let's look at the way homelessness is talked about, how the issue is currently being handled, and what we can do to help. For the sixth consecutive year, homelessness has increased nationwide, with the recent count in 2020 suggesting there are over 580,000 people experiencing homelessness in America. As of this year in Los Angeles alone, 69,144 people are considered homeless, an increase of 4% since the start of the pandemic. LA County has declared a state of emergency over this homeless crisis, and the declaration is aimed to usher in a renewed sense of urgency, creating the tools required to combat this humanitarian crisis. It will help cut through red tape, accelerate the hiring of mental health professionals, and streamline contracting services. Our guest, Mr. Michael Cardona, the director of Emmanuel Baptist Church Rescue Mission, located on Skid Row for the last 70 years, will help shed some light on this matter. Welcome, Mr. Cardona.
Thank you, Jake. I'm so happy to be here today with you.
Thank you for joining us. So, how did you end up working at the mission? What did that journey look like for you?
Well, I was in India when, as a Christian, the Lord gave me the order directly to help poor, sick, and homeless people with my own hands. And so after traveling through England and throughout the U.S., then we found ourselves in Los Angeles. And I came to the shelter one day after speaking to a street preacher in front of a Starbucks on 7th and Figueroa, downtown L.A., and he told me about the mission there because I was trying to find a place where I could help homeless people and study the Word of God there as well. And he told me about the mission, and I've been there ever since. And the previous director passed away just a few months ago, and then I became the director there in January. So it hasn't been so long.
So with the increase of homelessness, you do have many people coming in every day that you've never seen before and you're meeting for the first time.
Yes.
What is that first experience like between you and this person that doesn't know you? How do you make them feel comfortable, or how do you help them? What's the first thing that you do?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing for everyone, because when you're homeless or you don't have any money, you're poverty-stricken, you feel like you're not worthy, or you have a low estimation of yourself. And the best thing I think we can do is to be kind and professional with people. Don't pretend like you're condescending or looking down, but as if when homeless people are coming into our shelter, we try to make them feel that they're a customer and we're here to serve them. We want to help them in any way that we can. And so they're giving us an opportunity to perhaps give them something that they need.
Was there ever a moment when you first began that you got to know someone very well and they didn't end up on the right side of things, and it
Yes.
really struck you? And did you ever have a thing or a circumstance where you thought, okay, maybe this might not be it for me. I can't handle getting to know somebody and then them passing away or
Yes.
going back into that world that I tried so hard to take them from?
It's difficult. So we have to keep our mind focused on the greater achievement, is that people can have some sense of self-worth and understand that they matter and that there's more to life than just whatever their everyday struggle is. That if we have an identity that can remain strong and permanent, then whatever else we're going through, we can get through it. And we try to be a stability like that in people's lives. As they can come to the mission, it's the same every day. You come in and experience that. But I have had that experience. We had one of our cooks. He was with us for a while, was a great cook. We all loved him. But then one day his addiction drew him out of the door onto the street again. And then a few months later, we heard that the coroner came and pulled his dead body out of a tent. And there's so many people that we've known and lost like that. So we try to help people as much as we can while we have them, because mental illness is such a big issue there, and drug abuse. And people, you never know when someone's going to die from it.
I want to go back to empathy because I think that's very important when it comes to this issue. For example, a lot of people will be driving down the street or getting off the freeway, and people are holding up signs asking for as little as a quarter or anything that can help. and a lot of people turn away from that. They won't even make eye contact.
Yeah.
And they will, or they will say, back to your drug issue comment, a lot of people will say that they're just going to use the money for drugs or alcohol. Do you think that their reaction is a bit of fear or negligence, or even both in that case?
Well, it often is the case. It often is the case. Homelessness, for a lot of people, is a choice, a lifestyle. And that may be partly our fault as a society or government, that we enable homelessness to go on. Because I see it every day where there's people who have been on the streets for 20, 30, 40 years, been offered housing many times, but refuse it. Because if you've got money in your pocket and the government's supporting you with health care and everything else, then there's not much motivation to change your life. And that's very sad. But we do get an overwhelming large percentage of people that really want to get their life together again and get a job and live a normal life and have some purpose and self-esteem. And we try to help them as much as we can. But living there like we do, then we can understand how someone can get caught into that trap of being homeless and having that be your identity. And we try to show as much as we can that that's not an identity that is something that we can build upon or see as something that's going to help us in the long run. Because it's a declining state of existence, because we see people just become weaker and weaker and waste away, and depression sets in very quickly, and next thing you know, you're taking some really dangerous drug just to numb yourself so you can't think about it anymore. And when we live on the same streets as the people that we're trying to help, then you can sense when they're having a bad day and when they just need someone to talk to so they don't take that drug. Or suicide is a very real reality there.
Absolutely. A common misconception is people who experience homelessness begin to struggle due to substance abuse. And the reality is just like the general population, only a percentage of those who are experiencing homelessness with this issue. Others may deal with issues related to their experience of homelessness, including trauma and mental illness. Our reporter, Misael Soto, asked for a few people on their thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, it has a very bad homeless problem. I don't think I've ever seen it this bad. I've been here since 2007.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of homeless people, and I feel like it's just getting worse. I know there's a lot of them, so it might be dangerous.
I absolutely think of that as a homelessness problem. I think that of all the places I've lived in my life, it's the most prominent here.
Every day or each year, it's just getting worse and worse. You're seeing more homeless encampments and people camping outside of stores, and yeah, it's pretty bad. It's
the most prominent problem, one of the biggest issues that I've had in the city, but I have noticed it fluctuates depending on certain things, and it's definitely a sad sight to see, all the time, and all over the place. It's everywhere, and especially being in the downtown area and stuff like that. It's gotten so crazy. I moved to LA in 2011, and to see how crazy the homelessness issue has grown since then, in the 10 years that I've been here, is insane.
We're talking with Michael Cardona, the director of Emmanuel Baptist Church Rescue Mission, on the current state of homelessness in LA County. Just last year, homelessness increased 13% on Skid Row alone.
Yes.
How do you manage that increase, and what safety measures does the staff and even the residents take?
We are overwhelmed, actually. We don't have enough facility to give people a bed for overnight, not enough food to go around, because the numbers are increasing so much like that. And it's dangerous many times, because sometimes criminals will come and just hide in the homeless community. But we try to understand it peacefully, that if someone's going to come in and make trouble, we just try to push them back out the door without getting into any kind of physical conflict as much as we can, because we want to have a peaceful environment for those that are coming in to get just that. So, but we don't have any armed guards or anything. We have faith in God, and we trust Him. And we can see that if we're not afraid or alarmed by people, they calm down. because the street is full of anger and agitation, and we know people are having a really tough time and a bad day. And the last thing that we need to do is be part of that. We need to understand that it has to be a contrast. When they walk into the door, they need to see smiling, peaceful people who are eager to help. If it's just some fresh clothing, a bottle of water, some hand sanitizer, anything like that makes a difference. Because when you're dirty all day, just having a little hand sanitizer, people smile just to have that chance to be clean again.
Now, I'm happy you brought that up because I wanted to ask you again if you've ever had that second thought when a scary experience has happened. What is one of those instances that you can share with us that a person comes in and it takes a while for them to rid of their violent tendencies and a situation where you've been put in harm's way?
Yeah, your life is at risk. And sometimes it becomes so overwhelming. I mean, I've been punched, kicked, and all these things. And it makes anger come up in you. And you just wonder, how can I really help anybody when this is going on? But then I remember the people that are sitting inside while we're trying to get somebody out the door. And so we just have to remember that they need to see that we know how to deal with people who are being violent like that. And, you know, we have days where there's 3 or 4 people we've had to put out in one evening. And you just wonder, I don't know if I can continue to do this. But then we just turn and look at the people that are finding shelter. They are being rescued, what we call them rescue missions. They are being rescued and helped. And they want to say, okay, it's worth it. I just have to take it. You know, 'cause Jesus said you turn the other cheek, right? So that's very practical advice, actually.
There's an old saying that no one cares what you know until you show that you care.
That's right.
So,
yeah, I'm glad you say that.
So how do you work with the resources that you have? I wanted to ask, how many people do you have on staff that are there full-time?
Yeah.
And how do you guys work with the limited resources that you have? You talked about there's no security guard because you trust them. And I think that that's important because that way people don't get scared and stuff of that nature. But how do you work with the resources that you have?
We do what we can. That's all I can really say about it, because we're not government funded. We only take private donations. We've been there 70 years, so we're working. But we have 14 men on staff. And because we're open 24 hours a day, we have men that'll be up, a couple men that are available during the night, and we have a morning shift and an evening shift. And some of us work both. But because we know we're making a difference in people's lives, because it's often what we'll see is that it's Christian men and women that are part of the homeless community that will come to us because we are a Christian-based mission, like most of them are on Skid Row. And they get to hear that and feel some peace. They don't have to listen to the argumentation and all the sirens and the dead bodies that are being picked up every day. It's a harsh environment. And so to have a place where it's like an oasis, so to speak, to get away from that, we always look back, we understand why we're there and why they're coming in. And we don't let those kinds of things pull us away from it.
You have firsthand experience, obviously, dealing with this every single day. Is there a bit of you talk about private donations and stuff of that nature, but going based off of other missions in the area, I know there's a lot in Los Angeles. Do you think that the government is doing enough, or do you think that they are simply throwing money at the issue?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, the perception of people on the street is that they're just throwing money at the issue. I mean, it may even just be, I can't say for sure, that homelessness is an industry where it's being perpetuated instead of actually solved. But I have seen there's less people on the streets than there used to be. Even though there's more homeless than there used to be, there is housing coming. But the feedback we're getting is that they're just being shifted from place to place. You can only stay in one place for so long, so you get shifted from that one. And it looks like there's a lot of people in housing, and technically speaking they are, but if you're just being shifted every few weeks from one place to the next, the people that are homeless and experiencing that constant shifting from place to place, they just feel like they're numbers.
Right. Our reporter actually went and covered a fellow mission, and there is still a lack to call the increase the services provided to help this ongoing crisis, with the government looking for venues to alleviate the issues. Although citizens want the country to resolve the crisis, there is pushback from the very same residents, the limit or even lack of resources, with many missions and shelters being pushed to their limit in helping with the homeless reacclimate. Our reporter Misael Soto reports from the Hope of the Valley Rescue Mission.
The mission is a nonprofit organization founded in 2009 that started out as a volunteer-run soup kitchen out of San Pablo Lutheran Church in Sun Valley. It now has multiple shelter programs across Los Angeles County, including the North Hollywood mission, where we sat down with Director of Bridge Housing, Sharon Somoza.
This specific shelter and the 3 congregate shelters that I directly oversee, we offer case management services. And so essentially what that is anything to help get them back on their 2 feet.
Opening more locations, however, is no easy task.
We oftentimes will have pushback from the community. When we first open up this facility, the neighboring companies and places that are around here, there was a lot of pushback.
But the challenges don't stop there. Many of the individuals who are facing homelessness are also battling with mental health issues, which require professional help.
There aren't enough resources. For every, let's say for example, right, this facility, we have 85 residents. If every single resident said to me today, Sharon, I'm ready to receive mental health services, I'm ready to be linked up with a counselor or therapist, there are not enough mental health providers here in the San Fernando Valley to be able to offer those services to them. So I think that that's a huge barrier.
Despite the challenges, Somoza is hopeful that the community will eventually come together to combat this ongoing issue.
A lot of people are scared of change, scared of transition. The majority of us are. But I think once they see something firmly established and they see how positive it can be, it opens up way.
According to the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, there are over 40,000 unhoused people in the city of Los Angeles. As that number continues to grow, facilities like the one behind me continue to be pushed to their limit. Reporting from North Hollywood, California, for CSUN On Point, I'm Misael Soto.
Thank you, Misael. When we come back, we will discuss the resources available and where we have a breakdown in connecting resources.
Recently, the western U.S. has averaged more than 1,900 earthquakes and 3,800 significant wildfires each year. So chances are there will be more of both near here again. And between school, sports, and social lives, chances are you won't be with your kids when it happens. Will they know what to do? Ready.gov/kids has all the educational tools and information to make the conversation easy. When the time comes, chances are they'll feel prepared, not scared. So talk with your family today.
Welcome back to On Point. If you are just tuning in, we are discussing homelessness, the resources provided by various organizations, and what we can do to possibly help. Thank you for joining us. If you're just tuning in, our guest, Michael Cardona, is here with us. He works at a mission, and I wanted to ask you about mental health and the suicide and deaths that has been happening on Skid Row in Los Angeles forever.
Yeah.
And just last week at 649 Apartments, just down the street from your mission, there were 3 people that were found dead due to a drug overdose. What does that do to you in the mission and the residents that come in? How does that hit you guys as a community?
Well, they're one of us, and we feel that loss. We just went, oh no, another crazy drug. This one was Trank, it's called. And many are dying from it. We've seen so many fentanyl deaths. And it's people that we see. We might not know their name, but we see these people, and then we don't see them. Well, what happened to so-and-so? Often on Skid Row, you'll see little tributes. There'll be something like flowers will be arranged with a picture of the person that just passed away. And the other homeless people will put up a little tribute to that person to remember them, you know, R.I.P., rest in peace. And it happens so often. I think the average is like 7 a day are dying on the streets of Skid Row alone, what to speak of the rest of L.A. And, you know, when we see it, we just think, oh no, you know, we don't have the resources. As you saw in the interview, there's not enough resources to care for everyone. There's so many more coming in every day. And it really is sad. It's heartbreaking because when I walk on the streets or we see people, and the mental illness is so severe with some people, and the sad thing is that you think, how long will they stay alive? How long will they be able to live? Because before their own depression kicks in, and no one's caring for them, they're not getting the treatment they need for their mental illness, and it just goes on to the point where they feel like there's no reason to stay alive. Suicides are, I think, a big part of drug overdose.
I want to flip the coin,
Yeah.
and I want to ask you, what is one specific person that really changed their life around, and that you had that moment of saying, okay, this is what my calling is, and I'm on the right path? Is there a specific person that you can talk about and share their experience?
Yeah, there's just a couple of days ago, because it's every day there's the stories. Some are really good, some are bad, but most they're getting on there day by day. We have a lot of Russian refugees now coming across the border. Maybe people are not be aware of it, but Los Angeles is becoming packed with young Russian men from the Russian military. They're 18, 19, 20 years old. They're fleeing. And we're translating everything into Russian now, as long as Spanish. And there was one young man that came. He was really depressed and sad. He had to leave his home, his family, so he didn't have to get killed in the Ukraine. And he came into the mission, stayed with us for a couple weeks, and then just a couple of days ago he got a job, and he brightened up because he thinks, I have some hope now in my life. I'm not just going to waste away not knowing much English on the streets of Los Angeles. And that's what we try to do. We provide overnight beds for people, especially if someone's trying to make a difference in life, get a job and get some kind of health care that they need. And
On the topic of resources, just last month, the Board of Supervisors in Los Angeles approved a $609.7 million budget for Los Angeles County Homeless Initiative for 2023 and 2024. This is the largest investment in any given year to prevent homelessness. The three key missions of theirs, they will focus on reducing components to bring unsheltered people indoors, increasing interim and permanent housing, and ramping up mental health and substance abuse, like we talked earlier. For people that are experiencing these mental disorders, what do you think specifically needs to be done about that in order to make sure they're not just throwing money again?
Yeah, if drug abuse is not seen as something that needs to stop, and if people that are severely mentally ill aren't seen as people that need help now and need to be personally cared for, it's just perpetuating it. You can throw all the money in the world at it, but if people aren't given the chance to change and to be taken out of an environment that is intended to kill them. So many of the tents around our own mission are filled with drug dealers. A lot of those tents are people that have fancy cars and they go home to their families, and they're there during the day or during the night selling drugs, and everyone knows it. It's not unknown to the police or the city, but it's being perpetuated. If someone's selling crack pipes, as long as there's no crack in it, they can't do anything about it. In other words, in my opinion, the issues aren't being taken seriously. Just to shift somebody into a building without giving them the health care, the mental care.
Right. Before we break, our reporter Misiel Soto spoke to a few people about their thoughts on homelessness and their sense of safety.
Well, problem starts I guess responsibility on the people. I guess nowadays, people can choose to do whatever they want. Literally, there's no restrictions.
I think there's a lot of issues. I don't think there's enough resources for the homeless community.
I think it's so many things. California is a beautiful place, but it's very expensive to live. And I think a lot of people are transients coming in from other states, big dreams, whatever it may be, that brings them out here. And I think it's a little shock value as far as the cost of living.
Nowadays, people can just be free, do what they want, and no one will bother them. unless it's really like affecting their home or something. There's some people that there's like squatters that would just like raid your house, and they can just sit there, and because of the law, you can't kick them out. And you call law enforcement, there'll be no resolution until months. You have to go into like the state in order to fix that.
I also think it stems from a lot of mental health issues. If people aren't aware of the problems they have, then they don't have the incentive to want to fix that problem.
And then, of course, there's the mental health issues and the drug problems, which may even all be related. You know, if you can't pay bills or whatever, you might start drinking or using drugs to escape, and then the next thing you know, it's taking you over and you're finding yourself on the streets with no place to go.
Hello again. If you are just joining us, we are covering the current state of the homeless crisis in LA. So far, we have seen the County of LA declare a state of emergency related to the homeless crisis and the limits to which shelters and missions are being pushed in terms of their resources, and steps that the government is trying to take to help people going through that problem. Since the late 1990s, homelessness policy and resources have been focused on and the most visible forms of homelessness. So before we end this show, I just want to get your last thoughts on what you've encountered, what you've learned to kind of give people advice, either those who are struggling with homelessness themselves to get out of that headspace of, I don't know what to do, it doesn't seem like anything's working out, and also maybe people that are ignorant or don't quite understand the severity of homelessness.
Yeah, that's a big question because it's individual. Each person needs to see how they got where they are and be able to talk about it and see what they can do now to turn that around and change it and to be there for them. Because it used to be in society that if someone was mentally ill, the family would take care of them. Or if someone had addiction, that you could get help from friends or relatives. But now society has become so dispersed, it's tough just to pay the bills.
Right.
Right?
I want to ask you, sorry to cut you off there,
Oh.
you discussed how you actually let people come in and stay the night just to get a better understanding of the situation. Can you go into that a little more?
Yeah. Well, when someone gets a chance to get off the street and they can stay overnight, they get a hot meal, a clean shower, and we are encouraging them then so that during the day when they're not in the mission, that they're able to try and find work or get the health care that they need. We have one man that's with us on staff, actually, who has severe health problems.
Right. Well, we are about to close our show,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to say thank you so much.
No, not all, Jake. Thank you.
Michael Cardona, director of a mission that is very important to everyone across LA. So I just want to thank you so much for that.
Oh, not at all. Thank you, Jake.
Absolutely. With multiple bills being passed over various administrations since then, including the Ending Homelessness Act of 2019 of $13 billion, largely prioritizing the unsheltered and chronically homeless. At its heart, California's homeless emergency stems from a long-standing shortage of affordable housing, but it is also a public health crisis. The encampments of the rife with mental health and addiction disorders. With policies set in place over time, will tell over how effective these new measures will be. I'd like to thank again our guest, Mr. Michael Cardona, for taking his time to hear and give us his insight into his experience in this issue. That's our show. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week.